Is it too early for pre-emergent? I received that email a couple times this week, so I think it's time to make a video about it. And quickly, for anyone who doesn't even know what I'm talking about when I say pre-emergent, we're talking about something that you can apply to prevent some of the annual weeds from coming up, like crabgrass, foxtail, things that can really take over your yard in the summertime when things get warm. So there's an application that you can put down to easily prevent this, and that's what we're talking about today. I know down south some of you are probably thinking I've either already had to apply or I'm very close to applying, but for those of us here up north, it's a different situation where it has been warm some of the time, but I also see some cold yet on the horizon coming up. So depending on your region, you might need to be applying your pre-emergent right now, or you might not, but let's talk about how to figure that out. In lawn care, it would be nice if you could just go exactly by the calendar and say, every April 15th I need to apply this, or every May I need to apply this, but that's not exactly how it works, because you know the weather has been all over the place this year depending on where you live and what part of the country, and there's no consistency to it whatsoever. So how do you figure out the timing of this? Well, there's a couple things that you can do. One of the easiest things that you can do is just get one of these cheap meat thermometers and go ahead and check your soil temp. Now I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking you're gonna be going out into your yard and putting a thermometer in there. Are the neighbors going to think that you're crazy? They probably absolutely are, but you know they're gonna probably have to get used to it anyway as you get into this lawn care thing and you get more obsessed with it. So you might as well get that started right now. So I'm gonna put that about 3-4 inches down into the ground to check where most of the root zone is at. Then I can also go about an inch into the surface and see more of where that surface temperature is at as well. So it's looking like just about a 1 to 2 degree difference there. We're sitting at 39, 38 for the 3-4 inch depth there, and on the surface we're looking at about 41 degrees. So not a lot of difference there, but what I'm looking for is as I start to see about 50 degree temperature for the soil, I'm going to want to think about applying my pre-emergent, but also not just when I see 50, but when I look into the forecast and I see the weather is going to be continuing on a trend there of warming, because what's going to happen here is looks like we have some 30s coming for highs and some teens coming for lows in the next 2 weeks. So this soil temp is likely to go back down. Remember that it's going to fluctuate. So right now, if you see 50 and you see that it's on a warming trend for the next few weeks for your forecast, then you can go ahead and think about applying. So the other thing you can do if you do not have one of those thermometers, or you don't feel like going out and looking like a crazy person into your yard, you can look at some things online and try to get a general sense of what your soil temps are looking like in your area. I found this to be fairly accurate over the years, but going out and actually testing your soil temp right where you're at is going to obviously be the most accurate. But if you don't want to do that, check out the link in the description for somewhere you can go to check your soil temp right now, check some of the historical averages over time. It's going to give you some various data there so that you can kind of formulate a plan on generally when that temperature is going to get to the 50 to 55 degree range as far as your soil temp. So let's talk about the products real quickly, and I'll give you a couple examples down in the description below, or probably a pinned comment here as to some of the things that I've used in the past. So if you're more of a granular person and you don't have a sprayer, you can go after something like that, or probably the cheapest way to do it would be to mix it into a liquid and spray that. That's going to be most effective because you're blanketing the ground with that stuff. But I have used granular in the past many times, and you can go that route too if you're not comfortable with the spraying. So go ahead and check some of those example products that I've used. Also have a couple of videos on this from the last few years, some testing that I've done out on the plots with granular, and talking about pre-emergence and different things as well from the last few seasons, so check those out. Remember also to time your application for pre-emergent either with some upcoming rain, or you're going to need about an inch of irrigation put on this in the next few weeks to make sure it gets watered in and starts working. It's not going to make much of a difference to apply and just have it sitting on the ground. It's not going to do anything. It needs to be activated and watered down into the ground. So you need to do that part as well and not forget about that. And make sure to time it either with rain or irrigation. Let's say that you missed your window. You're worried about your yard being taken over with crabgrass or some of the other annual weeds. You don't have to fear that there's no other options. This is something to really pay attention to now. Visually, just going out into your yard and looking for when those early crabgrass plants are going to come up. But you do still still have time to figure that out. That's going to be early summer here for most of us in the northern climate. So you have time to figure that out, but you can always go after it with a post-emergent spray, which simply means after the weed has emerged, you're just going to go ahead and use the proper spray. Spray that on top of the weeds as they start coming up, and those are going to be killed right there at that point, and it's not going to be something that takes over your yards. So the pre-emergent is the best strategy to prevent all those things from happening in the first place, but sometimes breakthrough happens on just various areas that maybe you didn't get a proper application, or sometimes you just didn't get it done at all. There are other options, so just keep that in mind. I know that's a ways down the road here for most of us up in the northern climates, but for some of you down south, it might be a lot sooner than you think. So if you want to check out what those plants would look like, some various things that might get mistaken for crabgrass, I made a video about that last year as well, so check that out. And overall, we're inching closer and closer here. I know some of you in Minnesota, my home state, have a lot of snow yet, so you're probably cursing me right now, but here in Iowa, it is starting to get nice, and there's a few days of 50s and 60s here, but it is looking colder coming up in the next 2 weeks. So I don't need to worry about applying anything just yet, but I wanted to make sure to get this video out for those down in the southern climates, and also for those of us up here to start thinking about it, getting a plan together, and getting ready for the season. So just remember, you can handle this stuff. It's nothing to be afraid of. If you don't get your windows absolutely correct, it's nothing to be concerned about. You still have all those post-emergent things in your back pocket for the early summer in case something breaks through. So hopefully that helped you today to start thinking about your pre-emergent strategy. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.